Ladies and gentlemen, welcome very much to the inaugural talk about the AI Hub. We're very excited on behalf of the AI platform team to share what we've been working on over the last year. Really quickly, some housekeeping items. For those of you who have not used the Dory application for questions, please feel free to enter your questions there and vote on questions. We have a lot to demo today, so I don't know that we're going to have time at the end of the presentation to answer questions over, face-to-face. But Till and Lily here will be answering questions in real time during the show, as well as afterwards we'll continue to add the answers to the Dory app. So really quickly, the AI platform team has been very, very focused on trying to solve real-world machine learning problems for our customers. And as we've been talking to customers over and over and over again, we hear three main concerns every single time. The first one is people have trouble managing infrastructure. Whenever you're talking about machine learning, you've got GPUs, TPUs, CPUs, you have to do distributed training. It's kind of a nightmare sometimes, and some people would rather not do it, some people just can't. In addition, the real world is hybrid. There's stuff on cloud, there's stuff on-prem. Anytime you have one of those boundaries, it gets to be a little bit of a nightmare trying to move workloads from one to the other. That's a problem that we want to solve. The second problem we hear is really about a talent problem. There's just not enough talent to go around. You've got a data scientist, you've got production engineers that are used to putting those machine learning jobs into production. There's just not enough. So we need to figure out how to create 10 times force multipliers for those teams so they can do 10 times more projects and really enable and empower your organizations. To do that, we need collaboration tools that actually focus on reuse and collaboration across teams and essentially create a center of excellence within your organizations to meet your needs. So that's the theme you're going to hear over and over again in this talk. The third problem that we keep hearing is people are having a tough time getting started. And the reason is because machine learning is a very large area of learning, and so some people are new to cloud, some people are new to machine learning, some people are new to specific techniques within machine learning or to putting those jobs into production. Each one of those has a different learning front, and so the question is how do each of us get started more quickly? So how does Cloud AI help? We have a number of new products we're launching today, including the AI Hub, along with our new managed notebooks, and we're going to demo a number of these today, as well as our Kubeflow fairing system, which we'll also demo as well. Really quickly, one of the things to remember is AI is really a team sport. If you've ever seen an organization put a machine learning model into production, it usually takes a database expert, the actual subject matter expert, the data scientist, and somebody from the production engineering teams to actually get this to all work together. So you really need to make sure they're all working together. So if we think about this, each person has a role to do in a company. That role or that person might have a different skill set. They need different tools to be able to do their job. So the question is how do we make each one of these roles, each one of these people successful using machine learning in the way that they need to do their job? So really quickly, to make sure we're all talking on the same page, let's talk really quickly about the cloud machine learning stack. At the base level, at the foundation level, we all are building on infrastructure, right? So whether it's compute or storage or processing elements, could be on-prem or on GCP, does not really matter. That's the basic Lego block that you're working with. Above that, GCP has a number of managed services to make your lives easier, whether it's spinning up a virtual machine to get your Jupyter notebooks going or to do training or serving. Those are services to make it easier for you to manage your infrastructure, or if you choose to manage your own infrastructure, we can make creating the Kubernetes clusters easier with GKE. Most data scientists actually spend their life above that stack, more on the tooling and SDK level. So we're talking about the notebooks, we're talking about Kubeflow pipelines for orchestrating workloads, and Kubeflow fairing is a new service which we'll demonstrate a little bit later today, which enables you to take the same training code and run it locally on your VM or with a small amount of configuration change to make that run in a distributed fashion on machine learning infrastructure on Google, where we spin up the machines, you do the job, and then we'll tear it down for you automatically. Or you can end up having it run on any Kubernetes cluster that you choose, whether it's on-prem or GCP, in a true hybrid fashion. And at the top of this stack is the AI Hub. What the AI Hub really is a collaboration tool where you can find, then use, and then share any AI asset that you guys need to do your job. Obviously, Google is providing some of those assets to share. Some of our partners will be sharing as well. But it's also a place for you to put your own assets that don't get shared with anybody except within your organization. That way you can actually start to share and collaborate across the teams and have these teams actually go much, much faster. So instead of having 12 different teams doing OCR very differently, you get one team doing OCR very, very well, and each of the other 11 then configuring it for your clients. Excuse me. So really briefly, one of the patterns that you're going to see is we want the AI Hub to be a center of excellence so that for every single one of your people, we want a familiar pattern of discovering what you want to do, the asset to actually help you do that. Then you go use it. When you actually get something trained or working, then you can share that back with your team. That could be a model, that could be a notebook, or that could be a pipeline. And we'll see this later on in the demonstration. So today, the demonstrations that we're going to be giving will be focused on these three personas or users. First of all, the app developer who's trying to put some intelligence into their app. How do they do that easily? It will be about the data scientist who's trying to create a new training algorithm using a notebook, using different assets from the hub, and then once they've got it trained, sharing it back with their team. Or the ML engineer, now that they've got a pipeline, how do they configure that pipeline? How do they then deploy it? How do they monitor it? So first of all, let's talk about building the smart apps. So I'm going to be jumping in and out of the presentation, so just to warn you. So the first thing that we've done is we've put all of Cloud AI APIs into the hub so they're really easy to find. So you can see right here that they're highlighted as services. So you can see all of the different APIs here. So let's say, for example, I'm building a smart app and I get users to submit photos to me. I might need to understand what the heck that photo is, whether it's a cat or a car, or is there something that's maybe not family safe in it. So I can click on the Vision API here. I can quickly visit the product page for that product. And I might need to change the resolution here. And there's a demo right here that you can do really quickly. So we can click on that. And I've got a photo right here that a friend gave me. And I have to say that I'm not a robot. And off it goes. And so it has actually done bounding boxes on a couple of people in the photo that it's identified. If you look at labels, it's identified it correctly as a baseball park. If you look at the web entities, it's actually identified this as the Oracle Park here just down the street. So it's correctly actually identified the location of this photo. And if you go to the safe search, you can tell that it's fine to share publicly. So that's actually really, really valuable if you're an app developer and you just need to consume some of these services. In addition, there are times when you as a developer might have data that's labeled, but you don't know necessarily a whole lot about machine learning, and you might need to customize that model for your case. Let's say you're a manufacturer. You know, the Vision API is going to be able to tell the difference between tables and benches and screws and bolts, but it might not be able to identify all 10,000 parts on your warehouse lines. So in order to do that, you would supply the images from your repos, and you would go to AutoML, and here's the AutoML Vision right here. It's a beta service. And from here, it then walks you through the process of giving the data, identifying the problems and the labels you're trying to solve, and puts it in your own project, and then it will find the right machine learning model for your problem and optimize that model, and then give it back to you as a developer. You don't have to know what's going on inside it. You've just given it all the parameters to do your job. And it's actually quite simple to use. Okay? So the next journey we're going to talk about is now as a data scientist. Now, as a data scientist, like we mentioned before, one of the big problems we find is it's often hard to get started on a new problem. You might be an expert in one thing, and then your boss gives you another problem to work on, and you have to go figure out how to do that. So we have a number of great notebook samples in the hub. And so right here, I've identified these are all the notebooks. And so maybe I want to, there's a fun one, like let's say I want to do style transfers. So I can look for style transfers, and here's an audio style transfer, here's a 3D style transfer. This one's kind of fun. So basically you can take a 3D asset, you give it a texture, and then it applies that texture to that 3D asset. So you can imagine in gaming or entertainment areas, this might be something that's interesting, and you see this quite a bit. And you can go off and kick that off in a notebook and go mess with the code and change it and share it back with your teammates. Or, let's see, maybe instead you want to do, you've got structured data, and maybe it's in BigQuery or something like that, and you want to be able to do a gradient boosted decision tree, so you'll be using XGBoost. Well, right here, you have a pipeline, or if we want to restrict it to notebooks, you can restrict notebook. And here's an example of how to use XGBoost using Kubeflow Fairing, which is that service we're going to demonstrate a little bit later, that shows you how to train it and then deploy that on different locations. Okay, so just so you can see how it works, here is the notebook right here. I can click Open in GCP. We now have a new managed service so that we automatically spin up a Jupyter notebook for you on a VM on GCP to make that easier, so no more DevOps need to go manage that. You can either create it in a new VM or use an existing one. For speed, I'm just going to use an existing one. I can click Continue. It spins up, but I've been using this demo VM. And so here it is. And so you can go ahead and run that if you'd like. And so what you can see, here's all the standard code to be able to read your inputs, et cetera. Okay? And we'll talk about that in a second. So another thing that the hub does is it is added in a bunch of great support for transfer learning. Now, one of the critical problems we hear about over and over again is about a lack of data. So if you're trying to do an image classification model, for instance, you may not have millions of images, but you might have 100 or 200 or 1,000 for your particular problem. Well, how do you solve this problem? The technique of transfer learning is a way that you can use an open source pre-trained model that has been trained on a general data set to learn the general features, and then you can then switch over to your data set and fine-tune it on your data to get a really quick training, to really quickly train on your problem. And so we have a number of these here, and so you can see in the hub, how do I do that? Well, let's go to the TensorFlow modules. And so here's a bunch of different ones, and let's say I want image classification. And so here's the Inception v3 embedding, here's MobileNet, a little bit later on down there's ResNet. Okay, so let's say we want ResNet. So here's one of the classic embeddings right here. So you can see the original paper where it was published in 2015, so you can go learn about it. Down here is the code that you can copy and paste to put into your notebook to make that really easy from a boilerplate perspective. Or the TensorFlow team has made it really easy to copy and paste with a URL. So basically what you do is you go click that URL, and now to make it simple, I'm going to jump to a notebook that's already got the boilerplate in it so you can see how that's used. Okay? So right here, let's assume that I'm a cancer researcher, and I might have some images of cancer cells and non-cancer cells, and I want to be able to tell the difference between these, and I want to use that ResNet 50 embedding that I just saw. Well, I can look at this notebook here, and I do the common updates of my libraries, and set up my environment, and convert the images to TF records so it works better with TensorFlow. All standard stuff. I can visualize some of these images really quickly just to make sure that I've done it properly. I then set up my model, and you can see right here, that's the URL of the embedding that you just copied and pasted. The rest of that code around it is the boilerplate code that the TensorFlow team has provided for you to just use that. And then what you do is you wrap that in a one-layer Keras network. So it's got one output for binary, cancer or not cancer. And you'll basically be ingesting that embedding from the TensorFlow module and refining that model using your data that you supplied to it. It's really, really simple to do. And then basically here's what you do it's wrapped in a Python class. So you go ahead and go train on it in that VM. Or now if you're using Kubeflow Fairing, all you have to do is provide a few parameters about where is your Docker registry, where is your GCP project, and give it the base Docker image. And then with Fairing, you specify the GKE backend on GCP where you want to go run it, and then submit the job, and it goes and runs it on your GKE cluster as it's set up. Or instead of running it on GKE, you may choose to use the AI Factory training service, which used to be called ML Engine up until this morning. And with that service, we set up the cluster for you. We distribute that. We take care of all the infrastructure. It goes and trains. When it's done, we tear it down, and you only use for the services that you use. Okay? So that's a great way to do it. We also have demonstrations of how to use prediction from it. Okay? So think now that you are a data scientist and you're actually training in a hybrid environment. You're training on your VM wherever you are. You're training on cloud, either in a managed or an unmanaged situation. Or if you want, you can create configurations for running those on any cluster you want on-prem or any other hybrid cloud that you might. Okay, so now that I've got my model trained and I've got my notebook working, I want to go share that with my team. So we provided directly in the service the publication capabilities so you can share it with your team. This publish button is not to publish to the world. It's to publish within your work group. Okay? And you have quick ways so you can see all the assets that you've created. And these filters down here, if I can get rid of that. Oops, that doesn't do it. Okay, so there it goes away. Okay, I'm going to jump straight to the app so I can show you how to do this live. If I click on this publish, you can choose to share a pipeline, which we'll talk about later. Sasha will show us that. A trained model, just the weight files, or the notebook itself. I'm going to demonstrate the notebook. So let's say that this is the cancer demo notebook. And from a data type, this is image. So I'm setting up the metadata to make it easier to find for your members of your team. And this is a training workflow. Maybe it's a transfer learning from a labeling perspective. And from a summary, this is use ResNet 50 to train an image classification model for cancer detection. If I can type, there you go. Click Next. I can now upload a file, and I've got this file right here on my desktop. I open it, I click Next. It can now preview it, and then I click Publish. Whoops. And if I don't get that error, then it basically shares to the rest of your work group, and they can start using it. Okay? So with that, I'd like to turn the time over to Venki Rao, who's one of the AI principals at Accenture, and he's going to talk about this experience within the Accenture workflow.
Thanks, Justin. Venki Rao from Accenture. I work in applied intelligence organization within Accenture. At Applied Intelligence, we help our clients drive new business outcomes using analytics, automation, and AI. We have a large team of data scientists, over 3,000 data scientists across the globe, and we also bring in a foundation of data services that are pretty unique to the industry, in which we we have relationships with over 200 data providers, and we also have curated data sets in various industries. That's pretty unique to us. And then we have strategy consultants, who are deep experts in various industries. Together with all these capabilities, that's how we drive new business outcomes for our clients. Now, when it comes to AI Hub, we are super excited because, with the size and complexity of applied intelligence team at Accenture, we are constantly looking for new tools, that'll help our data scientists, collaborate and speed up our projects, improve efficiency and all of that. So when we saw AI Hub, it really fit into the needs of our organization. And I'm going to show you how we are using it. So one of the things I forgot to mention was in data science there are a lot of repeatable processes and there are a lot of steps that you could share from one project to the other. And a lot of times you come in with your data set and you have a hypothesis and you want to experiment faster. A lot of times we find teams kind of doing the same thing over and over again. And with AI Hub, if there's a nice catalog that they can look up and include those assets into their projects and build pipelines quickly, that's a big win for us. And that's what we see with AI Hub also. So I'm going to show you, while Justin showed you how AI Hub looks, the public view of AI Hub. As a customer, how does it look, for you? So, so this is the public view that Justin showed, and this is the restricted view, which is Accenture's view. This is where we have published a few of our assets. Within applied intelligence, we have literally hundreds of notebooks that can be useful for our project teams. There are pre-trained models, and various other assets, and that's how we surface them, here within AI Hub. Let's say, and you can see that the icon there, shows that this is only, it's a restricted thing and it's only available for our organization because, you have to be careful and you can't even actually, publish this to the public view anyways. But, you can, let's say, I'm interested in this particular notebook. See, this is a great example of a shareable asset. One of the things that we encourage our data scientists is to, when they get a new data set, to make sure that they apply some of the responsible AI principles that we encourage. In this particular case, let's say I'm interested in understanding how my data distribution is. Instead of writing all of that tooling once again, I could easily look at this and as Justin showed, I can actually bring this up within a VM instance. Right, so I can select this and I think there's already one here. Yeah, I've already opened one here. So you can see that this is a nice notebook for data scientists to quickly take a look at it, even run it, and then start changing it, and then making it useful for their own use case. So we find this extremely useful. It's all one-click deployment of these notebooks. and it really speeds up the whole process. So we are super excited about this.
Thank you very much, Venki. So I hope you can start to see the power of being able to put best practices in your own private section of the hub to share within your organization and get everybody aligned on best practices, whether it's for fairness or recommendations or fraud detection or whatever it might be that your organization cares about. Now, within Google, we do something similar as well. And so, for instance, these TF modules that we use those millions of times a day on all sorts of products throughout Google. For the notebooks, we share those best practices as well. And with pipelines, we have introduced a concept to do industrial Google-grade pipelines, both in and out of Google. And Sasha will come up and talk about this. And while he's coming, really quickly, one of the complaints that customers often talk to us about is why the heck does it take is it so much work to get a machine learning model into production? I created this model in 3 weeks. 10 months later, I'm still fighting with my DevOps team to actually get it going. Well, the reason is because there's so many pieces of the process around the model weights that actually are really critical to make sure it works. You need to make sure that your data streams that are coming in production are actually the same distributions and not distorted from what you trained the data on. You need to make sure that you've got the infrastructure right. You need to make sure you got enough RAM so that things don't die. You need to be able to scale up to handle any arbitrary volumes you've got. You need to be able to do A/B testing to make sure that any time that you make a change, that you're canarying it and making sure something doesn't break. There's a whole lot that goes into making sure that this actually works and you don't get disasters on your hands, right? Well, the TFX team created ways to understand each step of pipelines, and the Kubeflow pipelines team created a way to orchestrate these workflows. And so Sasha will now come up and talk about that. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Justin. I'm Sasha Sobran. I'm an engineer, a machine learning engineer on the AI Hub team. And I'm going to talk about how AI Hub can jumpstart your Kubeflow pipelines. So what is Kubeflow pipelines? Kubeflow pipelines is a container orchestration framework for production end-to-end machine learning. It comes with a rich UI that you can use to interact with Kubeflow pipelines, as well as a Python SDK for more programmatic execution. It covers the full machine learning lifecycle from data all the way to serving your trained model. So let's say I'm a machine learning engineer at my company, okay? And I have all our data in BigQuery, and I want to take that data and I want to use it for machine learning. One of the best models to use for tabular data is XGBoost, and it's usually a good starting point for a lot of engineers. The next step I want to take is, after training that model, I want to deploy it to AI platform prediction, so then I can make an API available to the rest of my team. So let's talk about how the content that we've created for AI Hub can fit into that use case. All right, so first, we have ready to go pipeline templates. Okay, these are full end-to-end pipelines that you can just bring your data, fill the parameters, and deploy them. Next, we have example pipelines. And so these are our reference pipelines that give you a good idea of what kind of the best practices for machine learning are. And then we have broken down components. So each pipeline is composed of multiple components, and we've created this suite of components at multiple steps of the machine learning lifecycle. This includes pre-processing for your ETL jobs, training for any out-of-the-box model you want to use that you don't feel like coding up, or if you have your own in-house and proprietary models in your favorite machine learning library, then you can use our distributed frameworks that work out of the box. You just provide your model. Next is the push to production. Okay, so once we actually create that machine learning artifact, we want to put it in a place that it can be used. So going back to that use case, of I'm going from BigQuery, and I want to use XGBoost, and then I want to deploy to production. So let's see how AI Hub can help me do that. I will click out to AI Hub. Okay. I've already set the filters here for public assets, so we're only looking at what's publicly available. Next, I've also set the filter for Kubeflow pipelines, so this will show me Kubeflow pipelines and components. And I said I wanted to run an XGBoost trainer. So let's search that. Okay. So right away, we can see that we already have a good amount of content with relation to XGBoost. Okay. We have an XGBoost trainer in Spark. We have an XGBoost trainer that takes advantage of GPUs, and it's also distributed. All of that is handled under the covers. So the first asset that came up was training an XGBoost model using data from BigQuery. So let me go check that out. In our documentation, we kind of give you a quick overview of what a component does, so you can quickly figure out if you actually need to use this or not. So here we can see it selects training and validation data sets from BigQuery. Awesome. It trains an XGBoost model, just what I wanted, and then it will deploy that model to AI platform prediction. So let's go ahead and use this model. We simply go up here and download the model, or sorry, the pipeline, and then let's jump to Kubeflow. So this is Kubeflow. Okay, it runs on Kubernetes. It can run on any Kubernetes engine that you like, okay, including GKE. And this one was deployed using the one-click deploy feature of Kubeflow. You just go to our UI, and you click deploy, and you have a Kubeflow up and running. So pipelines is a part of Kubeflow. I just selected it on the left. And this is the initial dashboard into pipelines, and it shows you all your pipelines. We've already seeded a few in here that you can see. And let's go ahead and add that pipeline I just downloaded. So I'm going to pick a pipeline. And then let's go ahead and rename this to BQ to XGBoost. All right, go down and upload. So this will add this pipeline to my deployment. Now I can go click on it, and I'll hide this here. All right, and I'm going to zoom out just so you can kind of get a view of the full pipeline. So this is a 4-step pipeline. It grabs your BigQuery queries for both your training, your validation here and here. It will then use that data. It pipes that data into our XGBoost distributed trainer and then deploys that model. So one thing to note here is that this pipeline was completely composed by all our individual components, which are also available on AI Hub. So if you like any of these components, you can take them out and use them in your own pipeline. So to run this pipeline, I just hit create run. I give it a name, okay? And then I go down, and I fill in parameters, okay? And so this is very straightforward and will get you running very fast. Now, in the interest of time, I've went ahead and ran this pipeline earlier, okay? And so let's go take a look at the output of that. So experiments is the place you go to see where all your runs have occurred. Now, an experiment is a logical grouping of runs. So let's say that you have a production pipeline, you run it at some type of schedule. This is a place that you can group those together to see kind of how your production system is changing over time. So for this particular experiment, I've only run this one pipeline as a demonstration, okay? And I can click on it, and now I can see that my pipeline successfully executed. Each of these check marks comes in, and I can go and look at the logs for each of my steps, look at my evaluation errors as they're logged out, and finally, I can actually get my model endpoint in AI platform prediction. So let's take a step back and go back to AI Hub. Okay, so let's say I don't want to use XGBoost, and I actually do a lot of my work in TensorFlow. One of the big frameworks that Google recently fully open sourced is TFX, which is TensorFlow Extended. It's basically a production machine learning pipeline tailor-made for TensorFlow. It's Google grade, and that means that it runs a majority of the machine learning pipelines inside of Google as well, and now you can take advantage of it. The value add here is that AI Hub, we host a reference pipeline for you to look at. You can also use that reference pipeline to then see how your workflows should change. So let's check that out. So here's TFX, okay? And the first thing that comes up is this TFMA taxi cab classification example. So let's click on that and take a look. So this reference pipeline, it uses TFX for the use case of trying to predict taxi cab predictions. Trying to predict whether or not someone will tip a taxi cab. So let's say I'm interested in using this pipeline as a reference pipeline. I can download it. Let's go back to the Kubeflow UI and go to pipelines. And I just simply upload the pipeline again. So one thing to note here is that I don't have to use the UI. I can use the Python SDK if I want more programmatic execution and entry point into Kubeflow pipelines. So let's take a look at this pipeline. And so this one's a little bit more complex than the last one we saw. And it has many steps, including a validation of data step, pre-processing, training, and then a model analysis step, a batch prediction step for a final evaluation, and then a deployment step out to AI platform prediction. So again, to respect your time, we've run multiple runs of this pipeline. So let's see how we can use Kubeflow pipelines to analyze those runs. So let's go back to the experiments page. Oh, 1 second. Okay. All right, so we have this taxi experiment here. And I've said earlier that this is a logical grouping of pipeline runs. Okay, and right away, you can kind of see that there's a lot of information here that you can use to compare these runs. So the first thing to note is that, again, let's say if I'm in production, okay, and all my runs are succeeding, my fourth run, okay, did not succeed. I see that right away as a failed status, okay? And I can just click on that, and I can see that my data validation failed. So I can click into this, look at the logs, troubleshoot, fix, and then run the pipeline again. Now, one of my favorite features of Kubeflow pipelines is the ability to aggregate these runs and then view them all in one dashboard. So let's take a look at that. So first, I'm going to select my runs that have all succeeded, and then I'm going to go up here and select Compare Runs. Okay, so this is a run comparison dashboard, and let's see what it tells us. So first, it gives us things like the duration of the pipeline. Okay, it also gives us a quick overview of these high-level machine learning metrics that we may be interested in, including accuracy and ROC, and we can kind of see that run 3 marginally performed better than the other runs here based on accuracy and ROC. So let's go down and see why that is. So this also captures the parameters that you entered into your pipeline. So it's easy for you to see the difference here. So the only variation between these three runs was the hidden layer size. And like we said, run 3 was the best, and we can see that the smallest hidden layer size actually performed marginally better. So these are important insights that you can pull out just off this quick view. Let's go down a little bit. So next, and I also love this, is TensorBoard. Okay, so for those of you who are not familiar, TensorBoard is a powerful tool for TensorFlow. It allows you to deep dive into your model so that you can see its performance as it trains, as well as any other type of metrics you're trying to track. Now, Generally, to use TensorBoard, you have to write all your models to the same directory and kind of manage that if you want to get everything together. Now, what Kubeflow Pipelines does is it's able to aggregate all these runs together into the same TensorBoard, so then you can easily make comparisons at once. And that's what we're doing here under this aggregated view of TensorBoard. So let's open that up. So here is TensorBoard. It's already running. This works out of the box when you deploy Kubeflow and Kubeflow pipelines. You don't need to set it up. And let's go down here, and let's say I want to look at my loss curves for all my runs. That is super simple. It's written here, and I can go ahead and look run by run what the loss curves were. It also has everything else you expect from TensorBoard, including your graphs, distributions, and so forth. Now let's go back to Kubeflow. And let's go down. We can see there's some other visualizations that are also very beneficial. Confusion matrix for this problem. And then the next thing, or the last thing that I kind of want to highlight on is that TFMA is also available through Kubeflow pipelines. And so what is TFMA? So TFMA is a part of TFX. It stands for TensorFlow Model Analysis. So let's break that open. So again, Kubeflow Pipelines is a rich UI, and it lets you pop out to the TFMA visualization. So TFMA lets you view your model's performance at different cross-sections of your data, so then you can pinpoint where your model is not performing very well, and then you can iterate and improve that model. This is extremely powerful as you're trying to find the best model for your use case. So here we can kind of see everything it gives back to us. The trip start hours was split up by time, and we can see how well it performed at each hour of the day. So let's close that. There are a few more features down the bottom. I'm just going to gloss over them. It shows you the ROC curve right away. And then these tables actually give you a view into your data that was used to train your model as well for each of your runs. Okay? Now, let's go back to AI Hub. And so I hope in summary that you kind of saw how powerful AI Hub and Kubeflow pipelines can be when they work together. We have a lot of components and pipelines already up and available for you on AI Hub that you can use today. So please take a chance to check that out. And now I'll hand it back to Justin.
Thank you very much, Sasha. Okay, so hopefully by now you've been able to see how impactful sharing and finding assets within the hub can be, whether that's your APIs that you're wanting to use within a smart app, or whether it's sample notebooks to be able to learn how to do new techniques from a notebook setting as a data scientist, or from a production experimentation framework to be able to do end-to-end machine learning pipelines in a scalable industrial fashion, and to really understand how to iterate on those pipelines and to debug them. It's a really fantastic tool, all starting with the hub. Okay, so hopefully you can see that. But we don't want you to really just take our word for it. We've actually been testing this with a number of early access partners, and we really want to thank them for all of their hard work in helping us iterate on this. We also have a number of topics that we've touched on here. We know that we were going lightning fast, so we encourage you to go see any of our other sister presentations here at Next, or if you missed some of those, they will all be on YouTube later on, so you can go watch each one of these presentations right there as well. And in closing, the AI Hub is now open as a beta product for you to use. Anybody with a Google account can use any of the assets there. And if you've got a G Suite account, you can easily share that within your organization. And we'll be rolling out access controls to make that much more widely available as we see fit, or as you see fit. We want to partner with you. We want your feedback. This is the beginning of a joint journey that we want to do with you. So we really value your feedback. There's a feedback button on the top right-hand side of the hub. We would love for you to submit, hey, what you like, what you would wish we would add, whatever it is. That's a very valuable feedback for us, and we hope to go on this journey with you. If you have content that you would actually like to share to the world and publish as part of the public hub, we are completely open to that, and please contact us. There's a form at the bottom of the hub where you can actually apply, and then we can start that conversation with you. And in closing, we just want to thank you very much for the opportunity to share this with you, and we hope to talk to you more.